This podcast contains discussions about sensitive topics, including mental health, alcohol and substance use, as well as suicide. It may also include strong language. The viewpoints expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the hosts. Listener discretion is advised. If you or someone you know needs support, please reach out to a trusted professional or a helpline. Welcome to Twist the Throttle, the podcast where we crank open the throttle on life's toughest rides. From mental health struggles to life on two wheels. We're here to have real, raw, unscripted conversations that break the stigma and help you navigate the road ahead. So grab your helmet, hit the road with us, and remember, it's still okay to pump the brakes. Together, we're shifting gears on mental health. Here's your hosts, Ambo and the Prez.
Well, welcome back, listeners. Another week has passed, and this week we've got a special episode. Phone in from Sydney. This is our first phone in. I'd like you all to meet Ape, or Martin. He's our patch guy.
Yeah, so Martin, you run Biker Patches Australia or Apes Monkey Business. What name do you prefer for your business, mate?
It doesn't worry me either way. Apes Monkey Business is kind of the name I roll with because my ride name in the club I'm in is Ape.
Yep.
So yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
That's
so
cool.
We start most of our podcasts with the same question, mate. What do you ride?
A 22 Road Glide.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and is it customized or?
Yeah, look, I've put a 122 kit through it,
Yeah, wow, cool.
and then just a bunch of cosmetic bits and pieces.
Beautiful.
Is it shiny
Yeah.
or is it blacked out?
It's denim. It's a denim mineral green.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, cool. Well,
Yeah.
we normally get a...
That would suit your club quite well.
It's usually people either like it or hate it.
So you're into the patches and you do the embroidery at home, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I do. It's actually more of a therapy for mental health than it is a business.
Yeah, wow.
I got sort of roped into doing hobbies by my shrink is probably the way to put it. So I don't work anymore, and I'm sure we'll get into my military history and why I don't work anymore.
Yeah.
But my therapist basically suggested I get into some hobbies and started off with leather work for bike clubs and then just progressed into patchwork over time because there seems to be a shortage of us guys out there that make patches.
Specialised.
I tell you what, mate, you're one of the most reliable sources I've ever used. From ordering to me come up with an idea to the patch being in my hands, and usually about a week turnaround, which is amazing.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Cheers, thank you.
Quality's over the top. So any other projects you're working on at the moment? No building any bikes or any crazy stuff you're spending money on?
No crazy stuff like that. I just try and get out on the bike as much as I can and do the patches in between.
Yeah, cool. How'd you get the name, Ape?
It actually came from my kids. So when I joined the Veterans Motorcycle Club, my sponsor was pretty nice and he allowed me to come up with my own name, or not me personally, but someone else could come up with it for me rather than just getting slammed with whatever crap name they want to give you.
The first fuck up normally ends up being your name.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So my kids wanted to call me Silverback because, I guess I've got hair that grows in all the wrong places. That was a bit long, so they shortened it down to Ape.
Yeah, cool.
Love it.
So you got big ape hangers on your bike?
I do. I've got 14 inches on a 2-inch
that's
riser.
cool, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Big, long, skinny arms too, yeah. I bet.
Yeah. Knuckles dragging.
Scratch your knees standing up.
Yeah.
I got the 18s on my bike, mate. So yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, nice.
So we'll go back. You said you were in the military. You enlisted in the army in 1996.
That's right. Yeah,
So-
I was in 1996. Did 6 years in infantry.
Yeah.
And I got out at the end of the 6 years. I guess my head wasn't probably in the right place anymore. It was the right thing for me to do at that point in time.
So what actually got you into the military in the first place?
I was kind of living a pretty loose lifestyle is the way to describe it. Lots of drugs, lots of alcohol.
Self-discipline.
Absolutely. Self-discipline was there, not.
Yeah.
And it was suggested to me that perhaps the army might be a good way to straighten up.
Straighten up.
Yeah. So
Well, I think we all
that's where I
got that
went.
suggestion as well. I'm a Kiwi. I did the New Zealand Army training.
Yeah.
Pretty unreal.
Yeah.
I didn't particularly like people yelling at me there.
It's kind of part of
Yeah, it takes a bit of getting used to.
So did you grow up around a military influence, or was that something you were drawn to on your own?
No, not at all. I was brought up by a single mum in inner city Sydney. No exposure to the military at all. But there was something about that whole sort of regimentation. I'll call it brotherhood, although there was sisterhood that goes inside the military as well. But it was that camaraderie that sort of drew me in.
Looking back, what do you remember most about your early training days?
Usually all the crap I got into, all the shit, we'd stuff up
learning your place.
Absolutely, like learning my place, and I couldn't help myself. I'm a smart ass, and so I was forever ever in trouble.
Guessing you got pretty
throughout
good
my
at doing
military
press ups,
career.
yeah.
Absolutely, whatever the punishment was, I did it in spades.
So you were talking about two RAS,
Yes.
second Royal
Second
Australian.
Royal Australian Regiment,
Right.
or most of us say RAR, not RA, but
RAR,
I'm splitting hairs.
No, you're right.
So yeah, I did a couple of postings. I started off at 6th Battalion Royal Australian Regiment, or 6 RAR, then went to 2, and then my last posting was part of the training team for 1 Commando Regiment down in Sydney. So I got around a little bit, but the back end of my career, I'd injured myself, so I actually stopped being a traditional infantryman and was retasked as a storeman. So they call that inside the infantry corps combat storeman. So you're still an infantryman first and foremost, but you're basically working with the stores. And I did that just because I busted my back and my knee and all the other ailments that you get from service life. Wear and tear from carrying huge weights.
Backpacks and shit around.
So you did some time.
Absolutely.
You did some time over in East Timor with Interfert?
Yeah. Yeah, so I went over there as part of the 2nd Battalion, and if we talk about weight, they called us light infantry, but there was nothing light about it. You had about 100 kilos on your back at any point in time, plus weapon, plus ammo, and on it goes. So that's light infantry.
That's where the injuries come from.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so I did 6 months over in East Timor as part of the initial deployment back in 1999 to help. I guess Indonesia was doing mass genocide over there. And between the mid-70s and end of 99, that wiped out about 75% of the population of the East Timorese. And so we eventually got involved. Right or wrong, it took a while, but we got there in the end.
So what was the reality like of being on the ground compared to what you expected?
The military prepares you for conflict, the concept of being shot at or shooting, which, I'll put my hand up straight away and say I got pretty lucky. I didn't have to stare down that face-to-face when I was there. But what they don't prepare you for and what you don't get a true understanding of is the humanitarian side of it. So seeing the kids starving in the streets, or hearing the domestic or potential domestic assault occurring that you can't get involved in because your rules of engagement don't allow it. So it's all of that sort of stuff that gets into your head and eats away the good blokes.
So in the military, do they offer you like mental health support?
They do now. When I was in, you basically got the "you'll be right, mate, harden up" sort of attitude. When you came back off deployment, they lined up the battalion, so 1,000 of us, and there was a couple of chairs. I think it was a sporting oval from memory. And you all had to go and sit at a chair, and there was a psychologist on the other side of the table, and they'd ask you if you were okay. And then you'd sign a form. So if you sat at that chair for more than about 30 seconds, everyone thought you were a nutcase, and you could pretty much guarantee your career got sidelined. So nobody owned up to anything, and that was kind of the culture. That was the culture back then.
Due diligence was followed.
Absolutely. And I got back from deployment. I was out and on leave down in Sydney within about 48 hours. So I'd had no time to really decompress or, debrief with any training professional.
So then you go out with your boys and you drink yourself fucking stupid and is that how it goes?
Yeah, pretty much. I always joke and say all the money I got paid when I was on deployment was pissed up against the wall within the first 6 months.
I understand.
A pure self-medication, and it felt great at the time, thought nothing of it. Everyone else was doing it. And it's not until years later you realise, well, actually, that was probably the wrong way to have gone about it.
So what was some of the hardest challenges you faced during your deployment?
Yeah, look, it's kind of what I said, that humanitarian piece. There was...
seeing stuff and you can't do nothing about it.
Seeing stuff and you can't do anything about it, especially the children, because they're the harmless, innocent victim in the whole component. And they're the ones doing it tough, malnutrition or bones that are broken and not healed correctly, so they're now deformed for the rest of their life.
So Timor, is it better now that we've been
look, I went back there about 3 years ago as part of a healing process, if you want to call it that. And it's still, I'm going to say third world, and the Timorese will probably hate me for it, but it's still open sewer systems. There is still poverty, but people don't fight in the streets anymore when they have a problem. They actually, worked out how to sit down and have a discussion and resolve things politically. So it's come a long way in that respect. And there's a lot less homelessness than when I was there, because it had been pretty much devastated, the whole country. So everyone was living in shanties. But so it's come together as a country. it's still got a long way to go.
Yeah.
They have a large oil and gas field that is going to bring in a lot of money to that country in the next, I'll call it 10 to 15 years.
We're not raping it
Provide
from them, are we?
a little bit.
Yeah.
Australia is getting a slice of the pie. But if the Timorese do the right thing with their money as it comes in the door, then that country will leap ahead.
So when you went back, did you get what you were looking for out of that trip?
Yeah, look, I went funded by Veteran Affairs. I went back as part of a group and we spent some time in the areas where I was stationed, went and met some locals. I went up to the Indonesian border and met with an Indonesian soldier and just bits and pieces like that to try and give me fresh memories and an understanding of the journey that the country's been on. And yeah, absolutely, it helped. And I'd actually recommend the program to any service person who's out there, whether they went to Timor or not. I think the structure of the journey while you're there, because you have to do mental health stuff at the same time, really helped.
So that was offered by the Veterans Affairs, yeah?
No, it was offered by a mob called Timor Awakening, which is private ex-service organisation, but gets its funding from Veteran Affairs and RSL Life Care.
Yeah, I had a mate who went over to Afghanistan and did two tours over there. He was like best mate growing up and different bloke when he came back. You completely see the PTSD is a real thing that I don't think people really take into account. As you say, just he wasn't able to walk into a room and just relax. He was always on edge.
Yeah. Look, and I've been out of the military now since 2001, and I always call it I'm walking outside the wire. I'll go into a cafe and I've got to sit with my back against the wall. I've got to be able to see all the exit and entry points. And
it's triggers.
It's just training. You train.
Absolutely.
You train to look for the worst in everything. So
is there any good parts that you do remember from your time in the service?
Oh, there's so many, and probably a lot of my memories are an X-rated sort of times.
But what did you get? What did you get most out of it?
The mateship, mateship and the camaraderie, absolutely. And I said earlier I was a bit loose and carefree, and it brought some structure and order to my life. And if I hadn't got that, I think I would have struggled a lot more this last 20 years since I've been out. But the mateship, absolutely.
If you could go back and talk to 20-year-old you just before being deployed, what would you tell him now?
Get help.
Get help.
Get help
before you go.
Look, I wouldn't change anything I did in the military. I'm proud of what I did in the service I provided, but I got out and I was pretty messed up in the head, and I just thought that's how everyone was. I self-medicated. I used my then wife as an emotional punching bag, so that didn't last too long. But I just thought that's what middle-aged men were like, or men in their 30s were like, And so I think if I could go back to myself again, I'd just be saying get some help. It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah, perfect.
What was your first year out like? Did you ever plan on doing that?
No, I cracked the shits one day and handed in my discharge notice. You had to give 6 months notice, and in that 6 months, I didn't really plan a huge amount. Back then, the military didn't really give you any support getting out, whereas now they have a discharge cell, and you get moved across to there, and they make sure all your medical stuff's in order. They make sure you've got all your qualifications have been recognised in civilian street. They try and help you get a job, all that sort of stuff's there. Whereas I kind of just got out. I just got jobs here and there to begin with, and then got lucky and sort of fell into a couple of jobs where people were a little bit more understanding of ex-service personnel.
So you mentioned struggling to hold down jobs. Is that a boredom thing or frustration or something deeper?
No, something deeper, but I didn't realise it at the time. So ever since I got out up until I was given a medical pension, which only happened in the last 5 years, I haven't been able to hold down a job for more than 1.5, 2 years. So I was swapping jobs constantly. And that was really me trying to manage my mental health, because I would get to a point where either people gave me the shits or the place gave me the shits.
Yeah, so they just don't understand what you're going through?
Because they didn't understand what I was going through, and I didn't understand them. It wasn't so much the work or the workplace. So I'd snap and I'd, tell the boss to get fucked, or I'd, take my, like I was never physically harmful to anyone in my life, but certainly they, it's always the people closest to you that wear the brunt, that push your buttons. So I would then change jobs.
More of an adjustment to the civvy life than...
Absolutely. Yeah.
We talked a lot about anger. Did you realise at any time why you're angry?
I just thought everyone who was in their 30s with kids and married and worked, non-stop to put food on the table was just a little angry man.
I'm a
I
little
didn't
angry
think there
man
was
on
a
the
problem.
inside.
Absolutely.
Anyone with kids is instantly angry.
It's a fucking struggle, mate. I'm telling you.
Yeah, you have some interesting moments being a parent, that's for sure.
Yeah. So when did your marriage start to fall apart?
My marriage fell apart the day I got out of the military, is what
Yeah.
I tend to say. And look, I'm fortunate now. I've been in a relationship for 15 years, and she's Kath. She's my rock in a lot of ways. But
Where's her ring, mate? What's going on?
oh no, she doesn't want that, which is just perfect.
Was there any point where you actually figured out what was causing it to go wrong? I know there was a lot of stuff going on inside your head. Was there anything that actually caused it to like fall apart that you could speak about?
Yeah, look, I think it all fell apart for me because I had memories from my military service that kept me up.
Yeah,
So I've been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder and a few other bits and pieces.
So you weren't
But
talking
it was
about
also
it with
I
your
just
wife?
didn't fit in.
Mm.
No,
Yeah.
and I didn't talk about anything with anyone until maybe 6, 7 years ago. That was after I had a bit of an incident. I tore the place apart at 3 a.m. trying to find some shorts to go to the gym. It was at that point when I sort of hit rock bottom and went, I've got to do something about this.
So how long have you
That's
been?
when I started talking about it.
How long have you been with the veterans, and have they been like a support for you as well? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They were the turning point. So after I trashed the house looking for this specific pair of shorts that I just had to wear to the gym at 3 a.m. because, no one's going to see me anyway. My old platoon sergeant was a member of the Veterans MC up in Council. He saw me basically implode on social media where I was like, that's it, I'm done, thanks everyone, but I'm out, and I checked out. He got the Veterans MC in Sydney to basically reach out to me and drag me into their fold, and that changed my life. They certainly were someone that I could talk to because other veterans kind of get and understand where you're coming from, and they got me in touch with a psychiatrist who then in turn helped me navigate the veteran affairs pathways, and eventually, it was determined I shouldn't work. And that I should do something else with my life. So
that's good. To put you on the right path. Were you into motorbikes before you met the veterans, or was it something that...
I've always liked bikes, but I wasn't in the bike scene. Like I knew the bike scene, I knew people in the bike scene, but I wouldn't have called myself a biker by any means. And that changed, obviously, going and joining an MC.
Yeah, definitely. Of all the MCs, though, I think the veterans are one of the most respected in Australia. Yeah.
I look up to them.
Yeah, definitely. We've been to the local one in Victoria a few times for being out to a couple of their open days and stuff.
Really, and look, being a member, I'm not going to disagree with you.
Was it like stepping back into the world? Was it instantly familiar, or take time to feel at home? So
instantly familiar. The pub or the boozer in the military is kind of the place you go after hours, and walking into the Veterans MC clubhouse, I always say it was like coming home and walking into a boozer again. There were blokes playing pool, a couple were drinking, alcohol wasn't the thing, but it was there if you wanted it. But the camaraderie and the banter and the shit stirring and all of those sorts of things that is almost like core life in the military was right there in front of me. And I just felt like I was coming home after 15 years of being in the wilderness.
Oh, what was your biggest shift in you after joining?
Biggest shift in me was I actually started to understand that the way I wasn't right. It wasn't, and that it was okay to not be okay, and it was okay to get help and to show a weaker side to some degree, rather than that whole attitude of, you're a male, suck it up, you've got to be the hard one, that sort of stuff. And so that certainly started to change, and a lot of that had to do with just because there were blokes that were listening.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of blokes. One of the reasons we've got this podcast out there is a lot of blokes won't reach out for help or won't accept when they're struggling. I imagine being ex-military and being told, suck it up professionally. Was that a battle for you to actually take that step to reach out with them?
It was, and it still is a battle every day. Like I will be that guy who loves a phone call, but won't make the phone call. And then if somebody rings me, if my head's not in the right space, I'll let it go through to the keep. Get me on the phone or have a problem, and I'll be there or be on the phone or whatever's required for hours on end. But yeah, absolutely. You're taught to compartmentalize, to deal with everything in isolation and on your own. And so it becomes to open up. And yeah, so I still struggle with that today.
So what was the process like with the Veterans Affairs, getting the disability support? Was it hard?
There are a lot of stories out there where it's quite hard and people take years and years to get through the system. I was one of the fortunate ones. By the time my psychiatrist finished his review on me and we put the paperwork into Veteran Affairs, it took about 12 weeks and my approval process was through. Unfortunately, there's been blokes that have taken their own lives because it's just taken so long, or they've been rejected so many times, even though they've got problems.
Of course, they can't work and they've got to live, and like everything, life weighs down on them.
Yeah, and when government that's sent you somewhere doesn't recognise you've got problems, even though all the professionals are saying you've got problems, it cuts you pretty hard. And you feel like your country's turned your back on you.
What you've given wasn't enough.
What I gave, you're struggling, but what I gave obviously wasn't enough to deserve it, which is 9 times out of 10 not true. It's just that bureaucracy's gotten in the way.
Yeah.
You haven't ticked a particular box, so they just go claim denied.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to any other veterans who might listen to us and who are too proud or stubborn to ask for help?
Look, I'd say get out there and ask for help. There's hundreds of ex-service organisations out there.
Buy a motorbike.
Buy a motorbike, absolutely.
Go and hang out with the vets for the day.
Look, I always say every veteran's welcome to come and hang out at the Veterans MC, but not every veteran should be a veteran, if that makes sense. But yeah, absolutely. If someone's struggling, reach out to their local Vets MC. We'll look after you and steer you in the right direction. That's for sure.
Love it, mate.
Hey, so what's your ongoing psych support?
I'm medicated daily.
Yep.
Not ashamed to say it anymore.
No, it's good, mate.
I see a psychiatrist monthly, and I also undergo a treatment called TMS, which stands for transcranial magnetic stimulation.
Yeah, what's that about?
Yeah. Okay. So it's kind of like, I'll call it modern day electrotherapy, but they use magnets instead of 10,000 volts.
And do you feel it when they're doing it? Or?
Yeah, you do. It sounds like someone's clicking a pen.
Yeah. Okay.
But really fast. You know how you can click? Yeah, that sort of sound.
And it's working. That feels good.
But it feels you'll feel almost like your muscles contract on your face at the same time. It doesn't hurt. Just takes a bit of getting used to.
Yeah, right.
How did you end up?
But it helps.
How did you end up trying that therapy?
So medication on its own wasn't helping. I started to flatline and get back into depressive states that I couldn't pull myself out of. I went into rehab for a while. That helped, for a year or two, and then I started to slide again. And so my psychiatrist said, why don't you try some alternate therapies? And we tried rapid eye movement therapy and a couple of other bits and pieces, and they didn't really work. And this was just one of those therapies. So yeah, I've been fortunate. It's worked. I can certainly feel a difference. My partner Kath notices a difference, that I'm a bit more upbeat.
Yeah.
Boys at the club can see it as well.
Was it a therapy that worked straight away, or was it a slow process?
Fast by comparison, but it took about 6 to 8 weeks before I started to notice a difference. And it's something that I have to do ongoing. So it began as a 5-day-a-week treatment, which for me is an hour and a half each way to get the treatment. So that
was
wears
pretty much a full-time job, yeah.
It felt like a full-time job, and then I'm now down on 3 days a week.
Yeah.
And that'll progress to 2 days a week. Then more than likely it'll sit there and or go to 1 day a week. And that's then a permanent treatment cycle that I'll do for the rest of my time.
What do you do if you find yourself going through a rough patch now? How do you manage your day-to-day?
There's 2 things I do: get out and ride a bike, or I reach out and chat to somebody that I need to. Get out and ride a bike first and foremost.
Yeah, perfect. We call it throttle therapy.
You know what? Psychiatrists get paid a fortune to tell you about mindfulness therapy and all these other therapies. Getting out there and twisting the throttle, got to use your terms, get out there and twist the throttle, is mindfulness therapy.
Yeah.
And I can't recommend it enough to anyone. So probably at the start of this discussion, we spoke about my hobby, and I make patches, and I've just got to keep myself busy. I have days where I get up and the best I can do is get on the couch and watch Netflix.
Yeah.
And that's cool. I don't mind Netflix. But I try to get out and I do something. And so that's where that hobby helps. It forces me to get out there and do something, and it also just brings in a bit of extra cash, which never hurts.
And how did Kath come into the scene, mate? How did you meet your lovely?
Kath and I went to high school together. Moved in very different circles. Never really had much to do with each other than we're in a couple of classes together. And then after my marriage fell apart, I had a friend who said, you should get on and look at this, social media stuff and get on. He called it the Facebook.
The Facebook.
The Facebook. Got to get on and have a look at the Facebook. And so I started reconnecting with just people, randomly that I knew, and Kat's profile came up. So I went, okay, I'll add her as a friend.
Cool.
Started adding everyone as a friend like a junkie. And then we just started talking, and it happened that she was going from Melbourne to Sydney a lot for work, and I was going Sydney to Melbourne a lot for work. And so we started just catching up as our paths crossed. And, as they say, one thing led to another.
So what do you think's different about this relationship compared to your marriage?
I think it's just because it's built on mutual understanding.
Yeah.
And I think also because I've gotten help. I mean, Kat's seen me at my very worst, but she stood by me. I've also got skills now where I don't, use everyone else in my life as an emotional punching bag when things get tough. So that definitely helps. But in all honesty, we've just got a solid friendship, and
that's good. That's what it's all about.
For everything. Absolutely.
Looking back, do you feel like you understand yourself more now, more than ever? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like I'm always learning something new about myself. But I probably only in the last 2 or 3 years would I say I actually get myself now, and I'm comfortable in my own skin.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about your patch business. So you say it's just a hobby. I've definitely thrown a bit of business your way. I've steered a few mates who are looking for patches as well. Most of the clubs down here now know that I'll send them to you.
Yeah. So. Did you make the Twist the Throttles?
And I've appreciated that.
You made the Twist the Throttles. They're fucking amazing.
Yeah, they come up great.
Yeah.
They come up all right. You got special machines and stuff to do it? Like how much can you
I do. So most of my time is spent doing the graphic design work and getting and taking an image and turning it into an embroidery file, and then I just push it to the machine, and the machine just does its thing, and all I have to do is change which coloured threads it's using.
It's funny because I've always I've messaged you a couple of times. I'm like, I've got this idea. I have no fucking idea what I actually want. Here's a couple of ideas, and you're like, send me back.
And trust me, I get people like you, and I roll my eyes and go, here we go.
then you send me back a picture. I'm like, fucking perfect. Thanks, mate. Get 10 of them.
So you do military stuff as well, or you do custom designs, or is it all just club stuff?
No, it's majority of the work I do is one-off sort of custom jobs for people. Yeah. A lot of ribbon bars for ex-service personnel, so that they can sew them onto their vests. And your clubs make up a bit of the work, but I'm a hobbyist, and a lot of clubs, take their patches seriously. And so, yes, I'll do them, but I also send a lot of clubs off to professionals to get their work done.
Okay. Yeah. I remember when we had our little run-in about our back strip, giving you a call, going out like, hey, mate, are we crossing any lines here? Like, you were surprised that it came into what it did, but that's how it ended up. Eh?
Yeah, so, look, and I do steer people down in the past sometimes where I just go, that's going to get you in a world of hurt.
Yeah.
Happy to make it, but
I can make it for you. Just don't tell anyone I made it.
Oh no, I tend to say I'll make it for you, but if I get asked, I'm going to hand you details over. So you really want me to go ahead, and that usually gets rid of the bullshitters straight away. They're like, oh no, don't worry.
What's the most memorable patch that you've worked on?
Yeah, I probably can't talk about it offline, but because it's one of those guys that would get their head caved in, I think, if I got made. Yeah.
So do you see the...
But I've made some interesting things, like I beat anorexia.
I love it. Make me that one. That's perfect. I need that one too. Where do you see the Patches Australia going in the next few years? Do you see it getting any bigger?
No, to be honest, I'm kind of happy with where it's at now. I can't work full time. It does my head in. There's a reason I've been pensioned off. To me, it's about just having a hobby, something to do a couple of days a week to keep me out of trouble. And I've got that. And I'm getting to a point now where I'm starting to say no to work because I don't want it to become a major stress in my life.
Fair enough. If anyone's looking to get any work done, what's the best way to reach you?
Easiest way, you can either go to apesmonkeybusiness.com.au or look up Like a Patches Australia on Facebook.
Nice.
They're probably the two quickest ways.
We'll share a link with our socials, mate.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
If you think about the man you were in 2001 versus the man you are today, what's changed the most?
Self-awareness and the fact that I'll talk to people now about what's going on in my head. And conversely, I've got the time to listen to people. Whereas if someone had come back to me back then with their problems, I would have been I probably would have said to them the same thing that was always said to me: harden up, or just get over yourself, or whatever those one-liners are that you always get thrown by people who don't get it.
Rub some dirt on
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. Whereas now I've got that attitude of I'd rather listen to someone for 2 hours than listen to a 5-minute eulogy.
I'll give you the 8 minutes you need to fix you up, get you back on the straight and narrow again.
Absolutely.
So what's next for you, personally or professionally, or just in life? What's on the horizon?
Just riding more and more, and that's pretty much the lifestyle I live now. If I could be out 7 days a week on the bike, I'd be out 7 days.
So you got family responsibilities at home as well?
No, my kids are all grown up. Yeah. I've got 28, 21 and 20-year-olds. Okay, so their problems are theirs now.
Independent. So you're getting around to many service stations, because I've got to add that into every podcast, mate. Cheap therapy, mate. 20, $30 in a petrol tank's cheap therapy as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. I'd rather spend $20 or $30 on my fuel tank than $20 or $30 up my nose.
Yeah, exactly.
True, mate, true. Yeah. So what's left on your bucket list? What's any rides or travels or something else?
For me now, it's overseas riding. I think I want to spend a bit of time on the South Island of New Zealand, because I've never seen a straight road over there, so it's got to be done.
Perfect, yeah.
I'm actually Kiwi. I've been around the South Island. It's magical, mate. It's cold. But pretty cool, man. A lot of the driving over there is all driving and riding is all bloody twisties. It's good. It's like Great Ocean Road everywhere. What type of riding you got around Sydney that you enjoy doing?
Well, so I live at Wiseman's Ferry, so there's not a straight road to be found within about 40 minutes of where I live. So I've actually got to go out of my way to find a straight road, so I can't complain. I've got all the best riding right where I live. Yeah,
Veterans up here, they've got a clubhouse right up in the Black Spur, which is up around the Twisties and Dandenongs. Around us, it's all flat.
Yeah.
We're from the west of Melbourne, which is just flat. We got nothing but straight roads and highways. It's a 40-minute ride to anything fun for us. So if you've got a vet listening right now, what's something that, if they're stuck in a dark place, what's one thing you'd want them to know?
Mate, I'd want them to know to reach out to someone. It's just okay to not be okay. We've all got our own different battles that we're going through, but there's always someone out there that's going to listen.
Is there a service that comes to mind that you could send them to?
Yeah, Veterans MC. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
No, do it, mate.
Look, there's a program that's run by Veteran Affairs called Open Arms, which is a counselling service. They're probably a good starting point. They can put you in touch with other organisations from there.
Good first touch.
Yeah. So my dad's ex-Navy, and I grew up.
Oh, well, I won't hold that against him.
He was down the engine room. He said he was shittiest job of the lot, because he'd pull into port, everybody else would jump off the boat, and he'd be fucking pulling the engine apart. By the time he finished it, he got a day offshore, and then he's fucking back on the boat again, fucking where he goes again, looking after a fucking engine. But anyway, he was, I wouldn't say he was overly affectionate. He's only just starting to come around now.
Yeah.
It kind of feels awkward to give him a cuddle every now and then, but yeah, he dropped his barrier. But he's an old, I was 4 when he got out. I'm freaking, how old am I? 40 something rather now. So 30 odd years he's been out for a long time. It's
still an engineer.
Safety. He's a big safety man.
Yeah.
He goes over to Africa with guns. He has armed guards going around with them. Yeah. And Timor, not Timor, sorry. Papua New Guinea and Africa and whatnot. It's a different lifestyle for him now.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Anything we haven't covered you'd want to talk about, mate, or anything you'd like to plug? Or
no, look, I think I've done the plugging as we went along, but I can't recommend it enough. Get out there and ride. If you don't have a bike, get out there and buy a bike.
Yeah,
you won't look back.
So what does Twist the Throttle mean to you, mate?
Twist the Throttle means to me just getting out there, forgetting about my day-to-day, forgetting about what's going on in my head, and just enjoying that, what's coming up in the next corner, what's that smell in the air, what's the feeling of the road beneath me, and just get out there and enjoy it.
Perfect. Love it.
Beautiful, mate.
Well, thanks a lot, Ape, for coming along and sharing your experience with us, mate.
We really appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for being our first phone interview. Hopefully this works out okay and sounds good.
No worries. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, gents.
All right, mate.
Good on you, mate. Thank you very much. Nice to talk to you.
Thanks, mate. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks for riding with us today on Twist the Throttle. If you enjoyed the ride, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your crew. Remember, no matter how tough the road gets, you're never riding alone. Stay safe, stay open, and catch you on the next ride. Keep that throttle twisted.